Castration for the purpose of achieving a higher singing voice was particularly common in Italy during the Baroque period, from the 16th to the 18th centuries. Boys with promising vocal abilities were often castrated before puberty in order to preserve their high-pitched voices into adulthood, a practice known as castrato singing. The popularity of castrato singing in Italy can be traced back to the development of opera as a musical form. In the early days of opera, women were not allowed to perform on stage. This was due to a combination of social, cultural and religious factors. And men were considered unsuited to perform the high-pitched roles that were common in the genre. Castrati, with their distinctive high-pitched voices and powerful lung capacity, filled this gap and became the stars of the opera world. Many famous composers wrote music specifically for castrati, including Handel, Vivaldi, and Mozart. Some of the most famous castrati singers from this period include Farinelli, Senesino, and Caffarelli. The pay for castrati during the Baroque period varied widely depending on their level of skill and fame. Some castrati were paid relatively modest salaries, while others earned significant amounts of money and enjoyed great fame and success. According to historical records, some of the most famous castrati of the era, such as Farinelli, Caffarelli, and Senesino, were paid extremely high salaries. Farinelli, for example, was reportedly paid an annual salary of £2,000 by the King of Spain, which was an enormous sum of money at the time. Caffarelli was also known to have earned substantial sums for his performances, and he was said to have been one of the highest paid musicians of his time. It is worth noting that the pay for castrati was not always consistent, and some castrati struggled to make a living despite their talent and training. Additionally, many castrati were exploited by their teachers and managers, who took a significant portion of their earnings in exchange for their services. There are many fascinating stories and anecdotes about some of the most famous castrati of the Baroque period. Here are a few examples. One of the most celebrated castrati of all time, Farinelli, was known for his extraordinary vocal range and emotional expressiveness. Legend has it that his singing was so powerful that it could cure illnesses and even induce sleep in the listener. Farinelli was a favorite performer of King Philip V of Spain, and he was said to have sung for the king every night to help him overcome his insomnia. Another renowned castrato, Caffarelli, was known for his stunning technique and virtuosity. He was said to have an almost supernatural ability to sustain long and high notes, and his performances were often characterized by flashy ornamentation and improvisation. Caffarelli was also known for his volatile personality and was rumored to have engaged in physical altercations with other musicians and even audience members. A contemporary of Farinelli and Caffarelli, Senesino, was known for his powerful and dark voice and his dramatic stage presence. He was a favorite performer of George Friedrich Handel, who wrote several roles specifically for him. However, Senesino was also known for his diva-like behavior and was reportedly very difficult to work with. Velluti was one of the last castrati to achieve significant fame and success, performing throughout Europe in the early 19th century. He was known for his stunning falsetto voice and his theatrical performances, and he was said to have been a favorite of Napoleon Bonaparte. Velluti's career was cut short when he was injured in a carriage accident and was no longer able to sing at the same level of skill. Despite their popularity, the practice of castrato singing was controversial, and there were many who opposed it on moral grounds. Some critics argued that castration was a barbaric and cruel practice, and that it violated the rights of the child. Others objected to the sexual implications of castrato singing, which was seen by some as a form of homosexuality or deviance. The practice of castrating boys in order to preserve their high singing voices began to decline in the late 18th century and had largely disappeared by the mid-19th century. There were several factors that contributed to the decline of castrati singing. One major factor was the changing musical tastes of the time. As the Baroque period came to an end, operatic styles began to shift towards a more naturalistic and realistic style of singing. This style emphasized the beauty and expressiveness of the human voice in its natural state, rather than relying on the extreme vocal acrobatics and ornamentation that were characteristic of the castrati style. Additionally, as the practice of castration became more widely known and controversial, many people began to question its ethics and morality. The Catholic Church, which had previously supported the practice, began to distance itself from it, and several prominent composers and musicians spoke out against it. Finally, advances in technology, and the rise of the piano as a popular instrument, made it possible to create a more balanced and harmonious sound in musical ensembles, without the need for a single and high-pitched voice to carry the melody. Castrati singing was officially banned in Italy in 1870, and the last known castrato singer Alessandro Moreschi, retired in 1913. Moreschi was born in Italy in 1858 and was castrated at the age of 11 in order to preserve his high singing voice. He was trained as a singer in the Vatican Sistine Chapel Choir, where he eventually became the lead soloist. Moreschi was known for his beautiful and pure voice, which was said to have a range of 3 octaves. He performed for many notable figures of the time, including Pope Leo XIII and Queen Victoria. By the time Moreschi reached adulthood, the practice of castration had largely fallen out of favor, and his performances were viewed by many as a curiosity rather than a serious musical art form. He retired from the Sistine Chapel Choir in 1913 and spent the rest of his life teaching singing. Moreschi made several recordings in the early 20th century, which are the only known recordings of a true castrato. These recordings provide a glimpse into the unique sound and style of castrato singing and are a testament to the enduring legacy of this once popular practice. While the practice of castration for the purpose of achieving a higher singing voice was most closely associated with Italy during the Baroque period, it was also practiced in other countries and cultures to varying degrees. In China, for example, the practice of castrating young boys to preserve their high-pitched voices for musical performance dates back to at least the Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 AD. Known as heavenly voices, castrati were highly prized in the imperial court and were often used to perform at important state functions. In the Ottoman Empire, castration was used as a form of punishment for male slaves and prisoners, and some of these castrated individuals were later trained as musicians or singers. Known as eunuchs, these men were highly valued for their loyalty and were often placed in positions of authority within the imperial court. Castration was also practiced in some African cultures, particularly among the Bantu-speaking peoples of southern Africa. Castrated males known as mangas were often used as servants or bodyguards to the chief, and were considered to be more trustworthy and loyal than non-castrated males. Today, castration for any reason other than medical necessity is widely regarded as unethical and illegal in most parts of the world. However, the legacy of castrato singing lives on, and many of the works composed for castrati continue to be performed and enjoyed by audiences today.